Welcome to the Foundation in C# course series. My name is Tim Corey and this is Module 9. In this module, we'll be creating a complete application to test out what we've learned so far. So let's start by looking at an overview of what this course will cover. The first thing it's going to cover is we're going to introduce the application. We'll talk about what the hotel management application is and what it isn't. After that, we're going to plan out our application design. So planning is very, very important to any application. And so we'll walk through that wood framework, walk through it, open it up, the user interface design, the logic design, and the data design. Okay, those 5 steps of application design. We'll walk through that together. And then after that, we're going to start by building our SQL database. Now you're kind of seeing a little bit down the road because that's one of the things we're going to talk about in our design is what database to use. Okay? In our case, we'll use a SQL database. After that, we're going to build a class library. And the class library will talk to the SQL database. This is where our data access will happen. We learned about data access in the last module, Module 8, and we talked about the idea that your data access is totally separate, or it should be, from your user interface. So we're going to create our data access in a class library with no user interface yet. Okay? Once we do that, then we'll start by adding our web application. We're going to have 2 user interfaces. So first the web app and then the desktop app. So we'll have 2 different user interfaces, one for the customer to see and then one for the person at the front desk of our hotel to work with. Okay? So a web app and a desktop app. Both of those will talk to the same class library and talk to SQL. After that, we're going to kind of take a step back and say, you know what? We actually want a different database or the option to have a different database. So we'll create a SQLite database. Now, this will kind of mirror number 3, which is build a SQL database. We're going to do a similar type thing in number 7. We're going to create a SQLite database. That's pretty close. And then we'll wire up that SQLite database to our class library, which will enable us to use that SQLite database in the web app and the desktop app with very, very few changes. And then finally, we'll wrap up the course and talk about what we've learned and why we did it certain ways and what lessons we can take going forward. So that's the overview of the steps we'll take in this course. Now let's talk about the flow of the course. I'm going to follow the try, see, do method of teaching. And that is, I'm going to give you first homework and say, okay, try this. Because you've already seen modules 1 through 8. You've already learned how to do all the different pieces. And so with this, now I'm going to say, okay, go ahead and do this little piece of it. You try to plan out the W step of the wood framework. And then once you do that, then come back and finish the video. Because after the try method where I say, here's what to do, now I'm going to do it. So first you do it, and then I'll do it, and you can see what differences there are, if there's any similarities. While I'm doing it, or after I've done it, I want you to follow up with you doing it. Okay, so you've already done it once, or hopefully you've tried at least. But then, whether you got it totally the same way, or you're close, or whether you just couldn't get a step, I want you to do it along with me while I'm doing it, and maybe do it 1 or 2 times afterwards as well. The same thing, or close to it. That way you can have that practice. Because, and this is our pro tip for today, watching does not make you significantly better. Practice does. This is something a lot of people really struggle with. They think, okay, I've watched more videos, therefore I'm more intelligent as a software developer. I know more software development. That's how I'll become a senior software developer. And no, it's not. That's not how it works. It's not about watching videos. And this comes from a guy who creates a lot of videos. It's instead about doing it. If you just watch a topic, you can often feel like you understand it. You know, especially the person explaining it does a good job explaining it. You kind of nod your head, follow along, go, yep, got it. But if you then go to use it in the real world, you often find that you don't really understand it. Okay? So you look at it and go, oh, wait, how do I do that again? And it's kind of difficult because you didn't practice it. You don't have those skills. You didn't figure out what you missed. Because often you miss a little thing here or there in the video, and when you go to use it, you find those things you've missed because you have bugs or problems. That's why practice is so important. And the closer to when you learn something, you practice, the better. Because then if you forgot something, it's more likely you can remember it real quickly. And if you can't, you can go back to the video and watch it again. So please make sure that you practice. That's what's going to make you significantly better. Okay? So your homework. Schedule time to go through this course. Put it on the calendar. Be intentional about your study. I read a book recently where it talked about planning. It talked about actually doing things. And it said they did a study and found out that you are twice as likely to actually do something if you put it on the calendar. If you say, I'm going to do this Monday at 8 p.m., you're twice as likely to do it versus I'm going to do this soon. Because we all know that soon never really happens. And if we're not careful, our priorities change over time. Maybe not intentionally, but they do. So the busyness of life is a big excuse for why people don't do things. If you put it in the calendar, your life is still busy, but you prioritize and say, I can't do this because I'm doing that. But if you don't have that on the calendar, then you don't realize that that's what you're doing. So when you go out with friends for pizza, you may be sacrificing your study time. But you don't think of it that way because you don't think, oh, I had planned to do this and now I'm not going to. So that's why putting it on the calendar is really important. So I encourage you, for your homework, put on the calendar, these are the dates and times I'm going to study this course. Look at the runtime of all the videos in the course, figure it out, lay it out, and say, okay, if a video is 1 hour, I'm going to plan on 2 hours or 2.5 hours of total time to practice it myself and to go back and try it again. Okay, maybe 3 hours. So lay it out, because I think what you'll find is it's going to take a little longer than you expect, and maybe you find out that it's going to take 6 months. You're saying, I don't want to take 6 months, I want to take 3 months. Well, then you have to put more times on the calendar. Okay, there's that, it exposes your assumptions. Okay, so put on the calendar and make sure that you don't have assumptions about how quickly you can do this. All right, so that's your homework for this lesson. Once you've done that, come on back and we'll discuss what this app is all about.